Hello everybody, welcome to iCommand. We have a very special video for you today, June 4th, 2023. We're going to be talking about the UK Games Expo Imperial Assault Skirmish tournament that happened on Saturday, June 3rd. And you guys should be watching this probably on Monday, June 5th. I'll be getting it out. But a huge thank you to David Gao, who's over there, I believe, running the event. And he took a ton of pictures and was posting about it on Facebook and Slack. So I think if you're on any of those programs or social media sites, you've probably seen some of his postings. But I wanted to make a video for those that are not as plugged into social media but interested in Imperial Assault, specifically FFG Skirmish Imperial Assault. This was not an IACP event. It was not necessarily a by the books event either. They didn't quite follow the prescribed map rotation for FFG, but they're not running IACP. It's all FFG content since 2019 is when they stopped making new content for the game, and when they last changed a card, which was Spectre Cell. So this will be very interesting to go over. There were 17 players, and they played in 4 rounds of Swiss with a cut to top 4. And this was in a big event hall. So I'm going to be going over the list, the winners list, and then the rest of the players lists, all based on the photos that David took from round 1. He took big wide-angle photos, which included most of players' deployment cards. Some of them I don't exactly know what all upgrades they have. They were maybe missing a point or two, but most of them are actually complete, and I have 40 cards. And we actually have the command deck for the winner as well for first place. David took a full spread photo of his list with the command deck, so that was awesome. Again, cannot thank David enough for taking so many pictures and covering this event, which allows me to be able to cover it and report it all to you. Basically our reporter on the ground, even though he definitely doesn't work for the channel, but always a friend. Okay, so before we get into the lists, I want to talk about the map rotation they used. Definitely an unconventional one, although one of these maps we are familiar with. And the other interesting thing they did is they actually kept the map rotation a secret from the players until the day of the event. And we're going to talk about the repercussions of that, I think, after I talk about the 3 maps. So the first map they had was Deveron Garrison, and this is a map that IACP players will be quite familiar with now, since we've had it in a full rotation for a year and actually just rotated out recently. This is from the Sabine and Zeb expansion pack, and it's actually a really great map. I think our community, our IACP community, has really come to enjoy this map, even though it's so small, much smaller than a lot of normal skirmish maps. And this is one where you have, one of them is armed salvage, where you have power tokens on the crates, which are the blue, red, and yellow symbols you see on the map there. And they stock up with power tokens, and you get to take the power tokens and gain 2 VPs if you control them. Pretty basic standing control with a little bit of power tokens mixed in. The other one, secure munitions, is a lot more interesting. You have crates that you have to move around to your deployment zone, and you get 6 VPs, but they're actually destroyable crates, so you can attack them. They have 5 health, 1 block, and they also deal a bunch of damage to anybody that's standing near them if they're destroyed. So that one is very fun, and the doors are locked on that one. That one actually has U-screw doors, and the other one has normal doors that can be opened. So very interesting scenarios on that. Quite balanced. It was from the most recent wave of expansions for Imperial Assault, so it had that modern skirmish design sensibility that they had brought to the game toward the end of its life cycle, compared to the earlier skirmish maps, which we'll be talking about in a little bit here. But let's go on to the second map they had, which was, this is called Moisture Farm. And I don't remember, I think this is actually from either the core set or Wave 1, very early in the game. And this one was interesting. First thing you notice is the terminals are very far away from the deployment zones. At least you have one shared terminal between the deployment zones that either player can go for, but you'll have to fight for. And then the second terminal is way far away, like maybe 10, 12 spaces away from the deployment zones. And then you have the missions are close to home, which is each player claims 4 mission tokens that represents them, and at the end of each round, if they control one of the crates, and there's 4 crates on the map, and that crate doesn't have one of their tokens on it, they can put that token on and gain 7 VPs. So basically, it's a stand and control mission, but you gain VPs once from each objective, and you can only do it once, so you don't over and over gain it. And but there were 7, which is a lot. So you could actually get 28 VPs if you are able to claim each of the 4 objectives at some point during the mission. So that one's interesting. And then you have Raiding Party, which is pretty similar to the Triple Cross mission we've seen on Coruscant back alleys, where you've got these raiders who are not technically figures, but they have 5 health, 1 black die, and you can attack them. And if you defeat them, then you gain 4 VPs. No, but you can't use any extra abilities on them. Stuff like blast doesn't affect them because they're not figures. And then similar to Triple Cross, at the end of each round they do 2 damage to each figure that's closest to them or tied for being closest to them. And then the players can kind of move them around the map or deploy a new one to the green area called the camp down at the south end of the map. So that's one interesting. This is one we've actually been looking at for IACP map rotation. I think the terminals are a bit of a challenge, and the objective layout is a little bit of a challenge, but it's kind of a interesting map if you choose not to open your door to your deployment zone. We don't like the deployment zones being that close to each other like that, but the fact that you have 2 doors there gives some leeway to it. So that's an interesting one. And then this one I actually had to look up. I was completely unfamiliar with this map. I just have not looked at it in a long time. This is Corellian Underground from the Han Solo expansion, which is from Wave 1. And looking at this one, it looks like the player with initiative gets 2 tokens next to the Tantina for each command card in his hand at the start of each round. At the end of each round, the player who controls the Sabak table, which is the blue X in the Cantina, is considered to have 1 additional VP for each token next to the Cantina. Now, what I've heard about this map is that because I know some of our players have tested it in the playtest league, is that the VPs just get insanely out of hand with how many card draw abilities are available in the game now. You just, if you have like 6 cards in your hand at the start of round 2, you can just have they stack. They don't go away. So you just keep stacking more and more of these tokens next to the Cantina, and whoever controls its back table is going to get 1 VP. So I've heard people say that, like, yeah, I had like 15, 20 VPs at the end of the game from this, and it's only 1 player, so it's pretty lopsided. And then Local Trouble, the thugs are hostile to all figures of other thugs. So I think that implies that they are figures. That it doesn't say that explicitly. It says, move each thug 2 spaces towards the closest hostile figure, then each hostile figure adjacent to a thug suffers 2 damage. A figure can attack a thug, and they have 4 health, 1 black defense die. And then end of each round, the player who controls the Cantina gains 6 VPs. So very similar to the Endor defense station, where if you control that middle room, you get 6 VPs. Added in some triple cross action with the thugs, similar to the other one. And I want to note here that once again we have the terminals very far away relatively to the deployment zones compared to other maps. We've got the middle one. You can go 1, 2, 3, so you can actually get to it with R2, but then your R2 is completely exposed to getting attacked. And the other one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces away, so that's too far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so the other one you'd need to do Gideon, and then again you're completely exposed to attack. So I mentioned I was going to talk about the repercussions of having these maps be secret. I really hope that, and I wasn't there, I don't know how it all went down, or exactly how it went, but I really hope that the organizers, after revealing the map rotation, gave players a chance to update their lists, because if you brought R2-D2 to this tournament, you were effed. I mean, you were going to have to put your R2 way out in line of fire here to get the draw. This map, you're again, either you're putting R2 in line of fire if you go into that middle deployment zone. So, and the results from the tournament kind of bear that out. We don't really see that figure doing too well. But let's jump into the lists, because I don't want this video to be super long. So congratulations to Zil. Z-I-L is the name of this player. Hey everybody, just a quick correction here. I was just contacted after recording most of this video by David that apparently he was using the wrong name for the winner, and I guess that was a transcription error on one of the staff's part who took his name down incorrectly. It's not Zil, it's Gil Alves de Oliveira. He's a very well-known player in the European Imperial Assault circuit. I thought I recognized his face. I thought he looked familiar to me, but David had been posting Zil everywhere, so I thought, well, this must be somebody else then. But he did correct me. He apparently just had a very busy trip out to get out there, and he did manage to get back to me before I released the video. I'm very glad he did that. I would not want to be putting out the wrong name for somebody who won the tournament, who went 6-0. So this is Gil Alves de Oliveira who won the tournament with this list. I'm going to update the image here so that it shows his correct name on the screen. But if you hear me saying Zil at any point in the video, just note that was an error, incorrect information given to me that I'm not correcting. Thank you. He got first place, so I believe he went 3-1, or no, he went 4-0 in Swiss, and then he defeated his semifinals and finalist opponent. Let's see. Oh, he was 4-0. I'm confirming that with Dave right here. So he was 4-0 in Swiss. So he was undefeated through the whole tournament. He went 6-0 basically. And Zil has definitely thrown a wrench into the preconceptions of the FFG meta by bringing Jabba the Hutt and Hondo Onaka in an Empire list with temporary alliance. Now, this is something that we tell new players not to do. Us old guard, we hear new players, oh, I could bring Jabba into my Empire list and get some card draw. The problem with that is that Jabba's abilities are very focused on only affecting mercenary figures. He can only focus mercenary figures with his ability. He can only order hit with a mercenary figure with his ability. Now, his card draw ability and his VP gaining ability are neutral, are faction neutral. Those will work no matter what. But having a 6-point figure that is only drawing one card a turn and gaining 1 to 3 VPs a turn is not super great. You want to be able to have that focus and getting that extra attack from him. Now we're seeing, take a look at what else he has. He's got Thrawn, 2 elite jet troopers, 2 imperial officers, Zillo Technique, Doubt, extra armor, and then of course temporary alliance. By the way, all these cards are in French on the screen, but hopefully you're familiar with them. And then looking at the command deck, he's got Shared Experience, Element of Surprise, Overrun, On the Lam, Brace for Impact, Call the Vanguard, Tools for the Job, Fuel Upgrade, Officers Training, Foresight, Hit and Run, Tough Luck, Urgency, Negation, and Hondo's command card, Let's Make a Deal. And that was kind of challenging for me. I had to remember all those based on just their image, but I think I knew all of them. So this is a Jet Trooper list with Hondo and Jabba splashed into it. As you see, we have Overrun, Call the Vanguard, Fuel Upgrade. No Concentrated Fire and no Grenadier. And the reason for that is because it looks like he needed to make room for On the Lam and Tools for the Job. And note, only one figure in this list can play those cards. Hondo. He's the only smuggler, and there's no hunters. So he's the only figure that can play On the Lam and Tools for the Job. And Hondo's command card, 0 points, Let's Make a Deal. Let's see if I can remember it from memory. I believe it's while you're defending, only Hondo can play it. While you're defending, you can pay your opponent X VPs and apply -1 damage to the attack results for each VP you pay them this way. And Hondo becomes focused. So yeah, usually that is not worth it. When you pay VPs to your opponent, you are going down XVPs and they're going up XVPs. That's normally very bad for you as the player. It's just not worth it usually to keep one figure alive by paying VPs. That's the reason I always tell people when you're getting attacked by Hondo, his ability is, while he's attacking, the defender can decide if they want to pay him 2 VPs or he apply +2 damage to the attack results. Paying 2 VPs every time Hondo attacks you is just going to lose you the game. That's a free celebration to the opponent. It's a 4 VP swing. Just take the +2 damage is what I tell people. Unless you really have the math nailed down and you know that you're going to lose more VPs from the +2 damage than you would by paying him, you should just always take the +2 damage. And that's why we say that you don't use Hondo's card to pay the opponent. That's the wrong way. You want the VPs to get paid to you, the Hondo player. I'm rambling a little bit here, but it actually makes sense that he played it in this list because if you think about it, The thing that is making Jabba useful in this list, aside from drawing extra cards and getting some extra VPs, is the only other thing he's doing that's useful is he's focusing Hondo. Because Hondo's the only other scum figure in his list, and Jabba can only focus scum figures. Hondo needs to stay alive in order for Zil to get maximum value from his Jabba. That is why we see on the Lamb in the list as well, which really you wouldn't really put in a list with only one figure that can play it. That's just kind of considered bad list building, right? Is you've only got one figure, you don't want to put in a card, especially a 3-point card, that if that figure dies, you don't get to use it if you draw it late in the game. But he's got Zillow Technique to discard if that happens, and it's so critical for him to keep Hondo alive in this list so that he can keep generating value by focusing with Jabba. And I think what Hondo's actually doing in this list is he is acting as a 6-point glass cannon. He is dealing a ton of damage for a figure as long as he can stay alive. And he seems like an answer to Vader. Now, that being considered, he's more like a 12-point card. It's like a package deal, right? You've got Jabba Hondo at 13 points if you count Temporary Alliance. So you're almost paying for Vader. You could just drop them and add Vader to this list. But it gives you some flexibility in that you don't have to like send this 13-point figure into battle to get killed. He can be kind of cagey with this Hondo. Hondo's pretty good accuracy wise. He's got search for +2 accuracy. He's probably rolling blue, green, red, which is fairly decent at rolling 4 to 5 accuracy. So you probably can shoot at range 7 pretty comfortable if he's focused. And he's doing a ton of damage because, again, nobody's going to pay him the VPs when he attacks them. Otherwise, they're just going to lose. So he's doing +2 damage innate on top of a 3 dice attack that's going to be focused. He only has search for +1, but that also explains why he has the tools here. He's probably going to be adding a red dice to that Hondo attack because his Hondo is there to be his heavy hitter while his jet troopers are there to kind of clean up and do little bits of damage to cheaper figures. But his Hondo gives him an answer to clean pieces like Vader, like the ATDP, which we're going to be seeing a little bit later. But yeah, so that is fascinating, a huge innovation, a huge mix-up actually for the FFG meta. It uses Jabba in Empire has never been considered good or viable, but it looks like it worked for Zil here. But let's see what he has been playing against. So let's check out the rest of the competition. So second place, the finalist was Tom. You can see here in this picture, shaking hands with Zil. Looks like they're having a great time, by the way. And Tom was playing Empire as well. So he is playing Darth Vader. And this is going to be the first of 2 of this archetype that we see. The other one also made it, I believe, made it into the top 4. This is Darth Vader with Driven by Hatred, an ATDP, not the ATSC. This is the 9-point ATDP from Tyrants of Lothal. Emperor Palpatine, 3 regular officers, Zillow Technique, Rule by Fear, Doubt, and Extra Armor. This reminds me a lot of the Vader Weiss Palpatine list that we saw in the earlier days of ICP. You've just got these 2 big heavy hitting figures that are very hard to kill, and then Palpatine giving those 2 figures extra attacks. And then you've got the officers kind of moving them around. And because the ATDP is 4 points cheaper than Weiss's in ICP, you get 2 extra officers. So these officers are doing a lot of work shuffling these guys around, giving them the movement they need to get into position. And then you've got extra armor, of course, to keep them alive, Rule by Fear to draw the cards you need, and Zillow Technique to keep them alive as well as Doubt. So very interesting. This is another thing that conventional wisdom said that ATDP was kind of second tier, not quite top tier. Now I will say that the tournament altogether, we didn't really see any of the top tier lists that we're familiar with in FFG meta. We did not see Vader Palpthron. We did not see Vader Double Jets, although I think somebody played it but dropped early. Had to drop after round 1. We did not see kind of the standard triple focus, double weak ways. Although again, I think somebody actually did play it. Actually, I'll mention that after we get through the top 4. So it didn't feel like a super premier level of competition, but still, there were good players at this event. I know there's good players in the UK, and they were playing. There was a lot of standard stuff that we see in the meta, so this was good enough to get to the finals. So I think this is a really cool list, and I think people who are playing FFG meta and looking for something different than the Vader Palp Thrawn, I think Vader Palp DP is a really fun archetype that you could try out. All right, our semifinalists. We're gonna go our first one. So this is third and fourth place, although mostly tied for third place, I guess, since they're semifinalists. This is Ollie, aka Ollie Dewhurst, aka actually a former member of the ISCP steering committee for a little while. I think for seasons 5 and 6, he was with us, helping us design cards for the IACP project. And you can see him there. I believe that is him on the left, based on the pictures I've seen of him in the past, in the blue shirt. So that he is running again Darth Vader ATDP, but this time with Thrawn instead of Palpatine, and using the extra 2 points. Also dropping Doubt to upgrade one of the officers to an elite officer. So we have Palpatine at home, and that is an elite Imperial officer. It's Palpatine at home, aka Extra Value Palpatine, aka Kirkland Palpatine, and then Zilla Technique Roll by Fear Extra Armor. So basically the same concept, but he's sort of having his cake and eating it too by having this 5-point pseudo Palpatine, so he can also get Thrawn and get more tokens. I think this is a great version as well. This is an interesting take on the same list. Don't know if Officer is valid. Don't know if he just didn't die immediately every time he's using him, but because he doesn't have advanced comm system either, he still has to reach within 2 spaces to give that extra attack. But I bet Ollie found a way to keep him safe and still be able to get lots of value out of him. All right, let's move to our final top 4 player semifinalist, Benoit, who I believe, based on the process of elimination, is the person in the black shirt on the right, but I do not know this player. I don't recognize them. I'm sure they played before, but I just don't know them based on my personal experiences with the tournament circuit. He is playing Scum, so our first non-Empire list in this top 4. He has got a Scum list with Sabine, Weequay Pirates, Elite Weekways, Onar Koma, Greedo, Jabba the Hutt, an Elite Jawa Scavenger, which is bringing R2-D2, and then Gideon Argus, who comes from Temporary Alliance, which also brought in Sabine Wren. So this, it looks like your kind of standard Scum VP list. You've got Sabine, which brings Rebel Graffiti. You've got Jabba, which is gaining extra VPs with Nefarious Gains. I'm trying to think if there's anything missing that is usually seen in Scum VP. Don't think so. You've got Greedo, who's great at playing Pickpocket, in addition to probably playing Price on their heads. Unfortunately, I don't know what his command deck looked like, but I would not be surprised if it was loaded up with all the normal Scum VP cards that you see, which is Price on their heads, Celebration, Rebel Graffiti, and Worth Every Credit. I think those are the main ones. And then Pickpocket, like I mentioned. So he made it into top 4. It looks like he lost to Zill, the final champion in the his top 4 game. So I believe he went 3-1. I believe everybody, by the way, in the top 4, except for Zill, who was 4-0 in Swiss. These 3 guys were all 3-1 in Swiss, so they did great. All right, moving into, and then I do want to mention. So we're going to move into the Swiss ranks here, and the first one I want to bring up is David's list, who also played. Now, from my understanding, is he was 3-1 going into the end of Swiss, but because of some issues with tiebreakers and who he played against or whatever, he didn't think he should be able to go into the top 4, so he dropped from Swiss with a 3-1 record, and he was playing a very interesting list, double weekways with triple focus. So this is a list I've talked about probably on this channel, or at least you guys have seen me play it in one of our recent throwback skirmish tournaments. So Jabba, Gideon, and 3PO with Black Market. So 3 focusers for 4 weekways. In addition, he is playing 2 Elite Lothcats with Beast Tamer. So he's kind of doing the 2 different things. He's doing the Lothcat kamikaze missiles, and then the triple focus Weequay Pirates. I love this list. I think this is fantastic. I mean, this is David's MO. This is like his thing that he does with Lothcats since ever since Worlds. He's kind of his signature thing, but he's incorporated into a top tier meta list, and I think that's fantastic. So what he's probably doing is he's tokening up the Lothcats with fresh catch ability, so they token each other up. Sends them in with Beast Tamer to deal some damage to the opponent's figures uh, early in the game. So he's sacrificing the cats to do that, and then the Weakways, they soften them up enough that the Weakways with focus and hidden can finish them off from long range. So that's fantastic, and he did really well, 3-1. All right, moving into the 2-2 ranked players. So this is fifth place in Swiss, if you don't count David's placement. So I believe this player is 2-2, and this is another really interesting list. We didn't see played a lot or played at a high tier in the FFG meta, or at least the last days of it. Rebel Force users. We've got Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight. We've got Kanan Jarrus, Ahsoka Tano, Ezra Bridger, Gideon, and 3PO with heroic effort. So Luke Skywalker. I mean, I don't know what the command cards are, but I would hope that he had two pummels, because otherwise I don't see how this list is winning. I've tried lists like this in the past in the old games, and it's so hard when you're doing only one attack per activation, even if it's a 4 dice attack, and it's a melee attack. You just lose your figures faster than they can clean up, and the tempo is really bad. But Ahsoka and Ezra are both great at playing pummel, and then Luke has his heroic extra attack. So I'm guessing if he's got two pummels, that's probably what carried him through the day and got him the 2 wins. But really cool to see Rebel Force users being played here. Interestingly, this list would cost 35 points in IACP because Luke is 10 points and Kanan and Ahsoka both came down to 7. Alright, our 6th place player was an IG88 player. So he had IG88. This is Jason, by the way, with Focus on the Kill, Weequay Pirates, Hondo Onoka again, Lothcats again, Jabba the Hutt, a regular Jawa Scavenger, and Beast Tamer. And yeah, this one is 40 points. So this is interesting. We've got Lothcats being used again with Beast Tamer to soften up the opponent's figures in the early rounds, and then IG88 and the Weakways cleaning up in the mid to late rounds. Interestingly, only one focuser in Jabba to focus the Weakways, but Hondo doesn't really need focus. It doesn't help him as much because he only has Surge for +1 damage. And the Lothcats kind of feed themselves with fresh catch, and IG88 does not need focus either since he's autofocus. So interesting take on that. Went 2-2. Next up, we've got Spectre Cell. So there are 2 Spectre Cell players in this event, and this is with the Nerf Spectre Cell, of course. I don't know which one this is. It was either Mike or Ian that made... Actually, no, wait. I should know based on my notes. Here we go. Who made top? Who made 7th place? I don't know which player played which list. So this is great. I just want to make sure I give credit to the players, because there were 2 different ones. Oh, here we go. Ian. So this is Ian that made 7th place. And I think this one, I was looking at the list, and the 1 point upgrade that is allowed for Spectre Cell was not in the photo. So I was trying to figure out what it was, and it was not extra armor because I didn't see any block power tokens on the figures. It wasn't motivation or any of the attachments. Yeah, so this was Ian, and I believe Ian was the final 2 wins player in Swiss, so the rest are going to be 1 win. So like I said, I had eliminated extra armor motivation because motivation I would have seen on one of the deployment cards. Same for scavenge weaponry as another one we sometimes see. So I think that kind of narrowed it down for me to either balance of the force or doubt. I am going to assume it was doubt, but it might have been balance of the force because I don't know their command cards. But anyway, interesting to see that we saw 2 Spectre Cell players in the league, in the tournament. Still, I think Spectre Cell is still a great list to play, especially for new players. It just everything kind of works really nicely together. The Spectre Cell card's very powerful. It's also a very skill rewarding list still. I think even more so now. It is one of the more skill rewarding lists, or really skill demanding lists is what I should say. So maybe it's not so great for new players, but if you're good at it, you can get some work out of it. But it can also fall apart very quickly on you now that it's not so broken. Now moving into our 1 in 3 players, it was surprising that David told me that Ian was the final 2 and 2 based on his memory, because we see actually, first of all, this is our first R2D2 list. So I guess not surprising that maybe R2D2 didn't fare too well in this map rotation with these terminal placements. But this is one of Rebel's better list archetypes, even though, in my opinion, Rebels are kind of got shortchanged at the end of the FFG meta. But this is Han Leia MHD with Jin Odan, Harrison Dula, R2D2, Gideon Argus, C3PO, and Heroic Effort. This is something we saw being played in the FFG tournaments before the game died. But I think average Joe Gamer played Han, Leia, MHD, and Drokata instead of Jin. I don't know. I think he must have cut something else. I don't know if he cut Gideon to fit that, because I feel like he had Hera as well, or maybe I'm just misremembering. He didn't actually have Drokata. Actually, I think that's right. I think he didn't actually have Drokata, but I don't know who he was playing instead of Jin. Interesting though to see Jin Odan. It's funny, she pops up from time to time in FFG tournaments. Usually she actually doesn't do too terribly, and she did get 1 win here, I guess, but she is a far cry from her IACP version, without that +1 damage and with only 6 health instead of 8. But otherwise, she has a similar kit: green attack, surge for stun and pierce 1, surge for +2 accuracy, +2 damage. She can work in a pinch if you can keep her alive, and she still has cunning too, but you don't have easy access to evade tokens like you do in IACP, so you have to really rely on C3PO. But again, I think maybe this might have been hampered, number one, by how much doubt we were seeing in the Empire lists. I think that definitely hurt this list a lot. And then just the hard times for R2D2 being a 3-point figure that very often I imagine was either not drawing a card round 1 like he should be, or getting killed round 1 if he does go for the draw on the terminal, because the terminals in some of these maps are so exposed. So that's unfortunate for the Rebels. Next up, we have Rob in 9th place with a scum. No, yeah, this is a scum droid list actually. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. It's more of a scum hunter list, because we've got BT1 as a hunter with targeting computer, Hondo Onaka, Vinto Krita, an elite Jawa scavenger, which is using scavenge stock to his fullest to bring in BT, Chopper, and C3PO, along with Gideon coming in with temporary alliance. And then we have Lion Ambush being used to bring in a Weequay pirate group. So, interesting list there. And then 10th place, we've got the other Spectre Cell played by Mike. And this one I know for sure was playing Balance of the Force. And actually I don't know. So that's the other thing. I don't know if this is the one that was played by Mike or what. But by the way, if you were there, if you were at the tournament, leave a comment and tell me what you played and how it went and what your experience was, because I'd love to hear from people who are actually at the tournament. Go ahead and leave a comment in the video. That would be awesome. So I actually don't know if this Balance of the Force list was the one that got 7th, was played by Ian, or if Mike was playing Balance of the Force. But Mike got 10th place with a Spectre Cell variant, is what I was told. And then 11th place was Joe playing Darth Vader with 3 Stormtroopers and Zillow Technique and no Driven by Hatred. So this is old school Vader's Fist from the game's outset. When it first came out, the core set, this was the most competitive list you used to see. It was Darth Vader, some Stormtroopers, maybe a probe droid or an officer, but yeah, this was like peak efficiency for core set. but unsurprising that Darth Vader without Driven by Hatred and these Corset Stormtroopers not quite good enough to get any wins in the FFG meta as it stood in 2019. Definitely outclassed a little bit. So that was the Swiss. We've got some players that also dropped, and I'm not aware of their Swiss rank, but I was told these players dropped, and I saw them. So I just want to discuss them really quickly. We've got an Empire list with Emperor Palpatine, 2 Riot Troopers, Elite Riot Troopers, Thrawn, an Elite Death Trooper, 2 regular Death Troopers, Doubt and Zillow Technique. Don't mind the Vader in the picture there. That's the opponent's Vader, deep striking. That's actually the unhatreded Vader, deep striking in on these troopers. Probably getting some sweet brutalities off, actually. But yeah, this is interesting. This is probably a very control strain heavy build with the stun batons and log lead plans, and then probably have a lot of reinforcements for the Riot Troopers and the regular Death Troopers. The Death Troopers can't chain into anything except each other and Thrawn, but I imagine that was pretty effective. So I don't know. This was played by Mark Radford, and I don't know how well he did before he had to apparently drop before the end of Swiss. And then another player that had to drop before the end of Swiss was Mark Stevens, I believe his last name was. He was also playing, he was playing Vader with Driven by Hatred, 2 regular Riot Troopers, and then a Grand Inquisitor with 2 regular officers, Zillow Technique and Unshakable. So this is a cool list here with the Riot Troopers. Regular Riot Troopers, which don't hit quite as hard as their elite cousins, but they are super efficient at only 2 points each, only giving up 2 VPs each, and then probably some cool stuff with the Inquisitor. And then we see Unshakable, which works on the Inquisitor, but weirdly, the problem is that Inquisitor is not a brawler, so you can't use Parting Blow. So I don't know how often that came up with Unshakable being used on the Inquisitor. Probably mostly there for Darth Vader to use Parting Blow, which can also be played by the Riot Troopers in a pinch, although again they don't hit very hard. So, but again, I don't know this player's rank after Swiss. I just know that he had to drop early. So that is it. That's all the lists I was able to get from the UK Games Expo. Again, huge thank you to David for covering the event, for posting pictures of the lists, and giving us all this information. Lots of fun to see old school Imperial Assault being played in 2023. I have to say, I do really hope that, I understand that the original game is a draw for people. I do hope that the UK community at some point can get behind IACP, because I think there's just so much more variety in IACP. Like, you saw that things were just kind of this, there was some variety here. There's actually more variety here than we usually see in FFG competitive events, but you're still seeing a lot of the same stuff over and over again in the same factions. A lot of Weakway Pirates, a lot of Vader, a lot of Palpatine, a lot of Spectre Cell. So I do hope they can try ICP again, because ICP just, the amount of options you have for list building just explodes, and it's so much more variety than the base game. But anyway, thanks you guys for watching. Tell me in the comments, what do you think about this tournament? What do you think about the list? What list was your favorite? What thing did you see that really surprised you? Always great to be able to cover these and send these out to you guys, the viewers. Alright, thanks everybody for watching.